Hey, welcome in live from Radio Row here in Vegas. Super Bowl, what is it, 58 coming down the pike here. Mark Schlereth alongside Mike Evans, the Stinkin podcast. Please make sure you push the subscribe button, share with your friends. But anyhow, Mike, how are you, buddy? I miss you here in Vegas, my friend.
Yeah, how you doing? It looks like you've had a great week out there. All kinds of celebrities and famous football people you've had a chance to hang out with. So kind of set the scene for all of us. What's Vegas as a Super Bowl city? What's it like?
Well, I've been in bed and asleep every night by 7:30.
You're ridiculous.
I've been getting up at 2. For whatever reason, I can't go back to sleep. But, man, I've talked to everybody says, by the way, I talked to Deion Sanders. I talked to Chad Johnson, Shannon Sharp. I talked to Pat McAfee. I talked to, The Rock, by the way, is a friend of mine. I talked to The Rock. Who else did I talk to? Emmett Smith, Saquon Barkley. It goes on. And they all say hi, by the way. They all say, hey, how's Mike doing? What's that big-headed knuckle guy doing?
I miss them. I miss them so much.
Oh, yeah. Everybody says hi. They really miss having you here, my friend. But, no, it's been good. And, and I've connected with a few guys. And I connected with a guy that I haven't seen in 100 years since I was playing, who is one of the dudes, and I've always wanted to do this show called Legends of the Game that you've never heard of. And I played this guy in 1993, and he beat my ass like a rented mule in that particular game. And shortly thereafter, a couple of weeks, I went on IR with Guillain-Barré. I had a lot of issues, health issues. But he beat me down, and this is one of the biggest humans you have ever seen in your entire life. And I saw him. As soon as I saw him, I knew who it was. I hadn't seen him since the day we played against each other. Eric Swan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember Eric Swan, but Eric Swan went right out of high school into semi-pro football, and then went on to be a Pro Bowl player and play 10 years in the league. I think 8 or 9 years for Arizona. I think he finished 1 year somewhere else. But that dude right now, to this day, he's my age, 50, whatever, late 50s. And he is every bit of 6'5" and probably 320 and yoked. I mean, yoked. Big old, his hands are like pork chops, man. They're big, thick hands, veins up his arm. I'm like, dude, take the day off, eat a cheeseburger. He's freaking gigantic. But it was fun to connect with him. Really cool to see a bunch of people out here. It's always kind of a pain in the ass, when you come out here oh my God, I got to trudge around. And this is, it's a bit of a pain in the ass, but it's really cool to connect with guys and see guys that you played against and you played with. And that's been kind of a fun part of it.
And during the course of a long Super Bowl week, you almost kind of forget at times the game, and the teams, because they can get lost in all the Super Bowl festivities. But now that we're starting to really kind of get closer and closer, about 48 hours away from the game, just kind of your overall feelings about this matchup, and where you were at the beginning of the week, how you looked at the game, and has anything changed over the course of the week to change your mind?
I am listen, this is going to be a biased podcast because, I sat down with Ed McCaffrey yesterday. I sat down with Lisa McCaffrey. I've known Ed and I started playing together in 1995. We played for 6 years together with the Denver Broncos. I've known Lisa since 1995. I've known Christian since he was 2 years old. I know all the McCaffrey boys. And obviously I've known Kyle Shanahan since he was 12. Kyle Shanahan used to come to practice during the summertime in our OTAs, and he's over there running routes with Eddie McCaffrey and he's in high school running routes with Eddie McCaffrey, running routes with Rod Smith, kind of learning his craft. He went on to play at Duke, and then he transferred to Texas, but he played wide receiver, and he had a chance to to try and make a team and play wide receiver in the National Football League, and and had that kind of come to Jesus moment with his father, hey man, maybe you're the fifth wide receiver on a team and you play some special teams and whatever. But kind of encouraging him, if that's not kind of the path you want to take, maybe coaching is the path you want to take. And so that's kind of how some of that stuff went down. But I've known those guys forever. So, I'm in my heart of hearts, man, I'm rooting hard for the Shanahans. I'm rooting hard for the 49ers. I'm rooting hard. Like, Anthony Lynn is on that staff. Anthony Lynn was a teammate of mine. Bobby Turner was our running back coach when I was there. John Lynch. I've known John Lynch, played against John Lynch forever. There's Jay Bird. Jay Bernetti is the equipment manager of the San Francisco 49ers. Jay Bernetti took over as the head equipment manager for the Washington Redskins when he was 19 years old.
Wow.
I've known Jay Bernetti since I was 23. And he was my equipment manager. As a matter of fact, I'm a young player, and we're playing against Cleveland in the preseason, and that's when you have 80 guys on the team, right? And so we're the Mistake by the Lake in the old Cleveland Municipal Stadium. And I take 3 laps around the locker room. It's a preseason game. I'm like, Jay, where's my locker? Like, where's my locker? And he's like, you're standing in it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm standing in it. And sure enough, I'm standing by this 4x4 pole. Like, you had to duck under. There were pipes and stuff in the locker room back then. And there's a 4x4 pole, like a support pole, in the middle locker room. There's one nail in it and a piece of tape with 69 above it. He goes, hey, you're low man on the totem pole. That's your locker, dude. And so there was a nail on each side of the pole. So that was 4 lockers in the preseason locker room. But I've known Jay since, like I said, since I was a rookie, and he's the head equipment manager of the Niners. So it just is. It's really cool, and I'm really rooting for him. But the crazy thing is, San Francisco's been, arguably the best team in the NFL all season long. And I've told you this on this podcast. We've talked about it on the radio show before. In the last 2 weeks, I think Kansas City has played probably their most complete football that they have all season long against both the Buffalo Bills and the Ravens. And I think San Francisco has played collectively their 2 worst games of the season against Green Bay and against Detroit. And so, I'm not going to be surprised if Kansas City wins. And it's hard for me not to lean in that direction, Mike, but I'm taking the Niners.
Yeah, I just can't pick against Patrick Mahomes now. I thought they were vulnerable this season. We saw them when they played and lost to the Broncos, and there was a real sense that, hey, maybe the window's closed, or at least for this year, the window's closed for Kansas City. But the way they came out and played in these playoffs, and it's not so much that they've been so much better offensively. They've actually only averaged like a point or two more in the postseason than they have the regular season, but they just seem tighter. They just seem more efficient. Like, for example, Mahomes set a career high this year for interceptions with 14, but in these playoff games, 4 touchdowns and no picks.
Yeah. I think one of the other things, Mike, is I really thought when the Kansas City Chiefs lost the Super Bowl to Tampa Bay, I thought there was some football hubris involved on the part of Andy Reid. There was like, we win the way we win, and we're going to throw it, and we're going to do those things. And when you look at the way that Tampa structured their defense, they played from high to low, meaning they were basically inviting you to run the football on them. Their linebackers were sitting at 6 yards, and they were getting so much depth in their drops that they were taking away those passing lanes, and they were doing a great job of essentially, playing defense, and basically said, if you want to run it down our throats at 5 or 6 yards a carry, be our guest. We will allow that to happen to you, or happen to us, but we don't believe that you're going to do it because that's not the way you like to play. That's not the way you like to call a game. And I thought Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs fell victim to what I called football hubris. They just were going to win the way they were going to win. Yeah. That's not them anymore. Like Isaiah Pacheco, a former 7th rounder, dude runs his butt off. He's been a focal point, an actuator of that offense. They are much more balanced. Even though they've lost weapons on the outside, they have become much more balanced. And like you said, they've tightened things up. And, people will say, well, what's this flip the switch. Travis Kelce talked about flipping the switch and we're much better. And people will say, oh, well, they've only scored like about one more point per game. Yeah, but you did it against three top 10 defenses in the playoffs. Miami was a top 10 defense. Buffalo's a top 10 defense. Baltimore's a top 10 defense. So not only did you curb your propensity to throw interceptions and turn the ball over, but you're also scoring 1 point more per game against three top 10 defenses. That's an incredible turnaround when you kind of couple that all together, Mike.
So we like to do this with the big games. So I'll lead you in. Kansas City wins the Super Bowl if they do what?
So if they attack San Francisco's defense and run the ball efficiently like the last two opponents against San Francisco have done, I have been for me, and I did the last two games of the season for San Francisco. So I probably broke down 6 games. And I honestly thought that the strength of San Francisco's football team was their ability in their front seven to rotate defensive linemen, to control the tempo and the line of scrimmage, and to really kick your ass doing that. And to let their linebackers run, roam, just fill, just attack, trigger, and get downhill. I thought in their last 2 games in the playoffs, they've been embarrassed. I think they've gotten their ass kicked. I think Chase Young's gotten his ass kicked on the line of scrimmage. I thought Penei Sewell had his way with him. I thought their inside rotation, which has been a strength, Eric Armstead came back from injury, and I just don't think he's been the same. I thought Kinlaw and I thought Hargrave have not been as dynamic or as just dominant as they'd been earlier in the season. And whether that's just wear and tear, whether that's injuries, I don't know. The other thing that scared me is those 2 teams, both Green Bay and Detroit, captured the perimeter of San Francisco's defense. So when you got to that outside pitch game, that pin and pull, that crack pull game, guys, safeties and linebackers and corners have not replaced. They call it crack replace. So if you get a guy that comes down in motion and cracks the defensive end and people pull around, you got to come fire up and create a new edge and force that back in, force that running back to get back in. And they've allowed the opponents to capture the edge of their defense to get 7-8 yards before they have to make a cut. They have been really piss poor defending people. Then the other thing that scares me a little bit is in their defensive back end, they've had some injuries, Mike. They haven't been great in their back end. But one of the things that scares me is Ambry Thomas. He has been a guy that people have targeted in 3 wide sets. Diamonor Lenore has moved into the nickel spot. And if you get into 3 wide sets, number 20, Thomas, has been a guy they have attacked in coverage. He got a couple in that Green Bay game. I think he had a couple, 2 PIs and maybe another penalty in there. They went after him a little bit. Their back end has been a little banged up. Gibson's been hurt. They've had injuries back there. So that makes me a little bit nervous about where they are right now. And this defense, they've got to control that line of scrimmage. They've got to control from a defensive line standpoint. Otherwise, I think they could be in trouble.
All right. So as we continue to talk about Kansas City, so they've seemed to have tightened things up a little bit offensively. Defensively, boy, they've been really good. And so how do you see that matchup with Kansas City's defense going up against San Francisco's offense? An offense you got a really good idea about what San Francisco is trying to do. How does that matchup look to you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at Buffalo. The Buffalo Bills ran the ball on Kansas City. They ran it really well early, and then it was I don't know that Kansas City did anything to stop it. I just think Buffalo quit doing it. It was almost okay, now that we've got this thing and we're rolling, now what we're going to do is we're going to, now we're going to let Josh Allen be the MVP, which, to me is so stupid, right? Here's San Francisco, what they have to do. You are, and I probably spent, Mike, I probably talked to 12 different teams in the offseason. Every one of them said, we're studying the Niners run game. The Niners run game is so unique. They're much more diverse than like when I started out with Mike Shanahan and that the root of that offense was there. We were not nearly as diverse as San Francisco is. They run a lot more stuff than we ran. But the base of their offense is wide zone. And they do such a great job of changing angles, using motion, using shifts to get angles on people and to block people and give people on one play many, many different looks. And that's what they do probably better than anybody else in football. And then everything that they run, whether it's a gap concept, whether it's duo concept, gap concept, power, counter, or whether it's zone or tight zone, they do a tremendous job as a coaching staff of marrying their play action to those things. And so that's how they create so many big plays in the passing game. So for me, I think the biggest thing, and this is what they've gotten away from this, and some of it is because, they've fallen behind quickly. And so they've gotten away from their run game. They've gotten into more kind of a empty spread, drop back game, which is not what their strength is. To me, San Francisco has got to run the ball, control the tempo of the game, control the clock, eliminate some of the possessions by Kansas City. I think they have the ability to do that, but that's how they have to go about winning this game. Get back to your identity, get back to who you are, who you were all season long, because if you tell me what we're going to do is play the way we played the last 2 weeks and we're just going to let Brock Purdy scramble around, make some big-time throws and do that, I'll tell you, you're going to lose. You're not beating Kansas City trying to out-Mahomes. It ain't going to happen. As good as I think Brock Purdy is, that is not the way you're going to win this game.
So do you like Purdy in this matchup? Do you like his ability to not get overwhelmed by the moment, not get sucked up into the idea that I'm going head-to-head with Mahomes? Because, if a young quarterback starts thinking that way, I would think that could lead to a lot of mistakes on a long day.
Yeah. I feel like that was kind of what went down in Baltimore. And almost that coaching staff was like, we're going to prove to you that our, MVP can out-Mahomes. Yeah, like nobody can. Like Mahomes is a unicorn. He's, like I've said many times, he takes a dump, it's orange sherbet. It's just incredible. So, but Purdy is such a grounded kid. And the other thing Purdy understands, he understands how good he is. He understands what he's great at, but he also understands what his weaknesses are.
Right.
And he is not one of those kids who's like, I'm going to prove to the world that I am the next Joe Montana or that I am. It's just not the way he's wired. So I think Purdy would be just fine, handing it off 31 times and throwing it 18 for a victory. Like he would love that. So I just don't feel like he's going to be like, I've got to do this to get us to where we need to go. I just think he understands what that offense is, what it's been the whole time. And he's going to have to make a couple of big time throws, and he's going to have to scramble around a couple of times and save a third down situation. But ultimately he understands that for them to be the most effective version of themselves, they have got to do what they do. They've got to run the ball. They've got to set up their play action. And there's nobody that does a better job of setting up that play action, marrying it to their run game. And the strength of the 49ers, and we've all seen it, it's a 6-yard throw, and the receiver catches it in stride, and there's not somebody within 8 yards of him. Mm-hmm. So now all of a sudden, whether it's Debo or Ayuk or Kittle or Juszczyk or Christian McCaffrey, now they're all running backs. And that's when they're at their best. But it's all predicated on them being able to run the ball and control the tempo. And they have not controlled the tempo of either game they've been in the playoffs, either Green Bay or Detroit.
All right, time for a pick. I'm going to go with Kansas City. I got Kansas City 24-20. I'm sorry, I just can't pick against Mahomes. I know a lot of America may not like this, but I'm going with Kansas City. They win the Super Bowl, and they officially become a dynasty.
Yeah, well, I mean, you go to 6 AFC championships in a row. I think you're already a dynasty
No.
with a Super Bowl win or two they have right now. But there's part of me that hates this pick. But you know, I, I I say the 49ers get back to their identity. They do what they do best. They run the heck out of the football. Christian McCaffrey becomes the MVP. They win this thing 27-26, late rally, but it's just not enough by the Chiefs. San Francisco is your Super Bowl champion.
So when you get to this kind of game, right, it's the Super Bowl, and you haven't played – the 49ers, I know, feel like they haven't played their best football in the last two playoff games. But they've won. But in your experience, when you get to this game, can you just kind of get back to being who you were? Or have you sort of established this is what we're going to have to deal with and get around in the Super Bowl? Like, can you shake off two bad games? Or are they even bad games? Because you won them and you're in the Super Bowl. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it's one of those things you've got to execute early so that you can get in the tempo and rhythm of what you do. And I think ultimately what really happened to them offensively, why they got off track so bad, offensively, is because defensively they were so awful. They give up a long touchdown drive to Green Bay right off the bat. Like I said, they had one possession in the first quarter in that Green Bay game, another long drive. Like, you just got off schedule, and then it's really hard to get yourself back into that rhythm. So I think that's one of the things that went down. Defensively, ultimately, it's almost interesting. Like, I know you love to double up in the last 4 minutes, right? It's have that last possession, see if you can score, get the ball, come out at halftime. But I'm telling you, if you win the opening kickoff, I don't know that your best play is not to take the ball if you're San Francisco. Instead of putting your defense out there and saying, let's get ourselves into the rhythm that we want to be in right off the bat. I'm not sure I think that might be the best play for them. I know that's not the standard, the way teams do it now. Everybody defers. But the way they played defensively, I don't know that deferring is the best answer for San Francisco.
Hey, let's just do a couple of quick housekeeping details here before we get out of here for the for the week. MVP, Lamar Jackson. He joins a very distinctive, very select group of quarterbacks who have won 2 or more MVPs. The thing about it, though, is that all these quarterbacks that have won 2 or more MVPs have won a Super Bowl. Can Lamar Jackson, can he be included in that kind of group until he wins the Super Bowl?
Like if his career was to end today, like if he and Mahomes' career ended today, Mahomes goes directly to the Hall of Fame. I don't think Lamar goes. Now,
even with 2 MVPs.
Even with 2 MVPs. But if he continues on this path, like if he wins or gets to a Super Bowl, then I think with 2 MVPs it's in. But right now, I think there are some question marks in regards to that. So I'm going to say probably not. Probably not.
Okay. DeMar Hamlin did not win the Comeback Player of the Year award. That went to Joe Flacco. Apparently, dying on a football field and coming back the next year isn't enough for a comeback.
Yeah, apparently not. That one doesn't make sense to me. I mean, you pulled a Lazarus. You rose from the dead, and it's amazing what he was able to accomplish. I get that Joe Flacco came off his couch. Now, if Joe Flacco came off his couch when he was dead, that would be a different story. But he just came off his couch, and he did play well. There's no question about it. But I would have voted for DeMar. I just to overcome that fear and to overcome those odds and to spend as much time as he did in the hospital and everything else, that's a remarkable comeback. I would have given it to him.
Okay, well, enjoy your final hours, days in Vegas, and have a good time. I know you've had a good time thus far. We appreciate all the sights and sounds and everything you've shared with us. Apparently what has happened in Vegas, you've been able to share with us in talking about what happened in Vegas. So it's been a good week. I wish I was there with you, but America, get ready to enjoy the Super Bowl.
Exactly. Hey, listen, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth podcast, I do want to show you my homemade tripod just so you guys have a look at this. Okay, wait a minute. Here we go. Can you see that? For everybody involved, there's Mace back there. For everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth podcast, hey, we appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Download, subscribe. For Mike, I am Mark. You guys have a great day, and go Niners. How about that? All right, go Casey. Whatever one you like best. All right, man. I'll talk to you, Michael.
See ya.
Hey, for everybody involved in the Stinkin Truth, we thank you so much. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure you don't forget to give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel for more content just like this. If you want to see more of our videos, you can also be sure to check out our playlist. Let us know exactly what you think in the comments below. We appreciate you guys so much for being a part of that.
Don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date on our latest updates. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.